The RV market is collapsing, and dealers panic as Americans turn their homes into wheels. And what's driving this massive shift is reshaping how we think about home ownership forever. Overnight, record-high shipments fueled by the pandemic boom have crashed into a wall of unsold stock, with dealers slashing prices in desperation and manufacturers shutting down decades-old production lines. But it's not only the RV industry at stake. Millions now reject mortgages for life on the road, challenging the very foundation of the American dream. As banks scramble and cities lose revenue, the real shock is just beginning. What does this upheaval reveal about our future, and who will survive as it all unravels? In the spring of 2020, as airports emptied and city streets fell silent, a different kind of traffic jam began to form. RV dealerships across the country watched their lots clear out almost overnight. Families, retirees, and young professionals, shut out from flights and hotels, rushed to buy any motorhome, trailer, or camper they could find. Suddenly, the RV became more than a vacation tool. It was a lifeline, a safe bubble on wheels that promised both escape and security. Manufacturers scrambled to keep up. By the end of 2020, factory lines in Elkhart, Indiana, the heart of America's RV industry, were running around the clock. Some plants hired hundreds of new workers in a matter of weeks. In 2021, the industry shipped a record 600,240 new RVs, up nearly 40% from pre-pandemic levels. Dealers placed orders months in advance, betting that every unit would be spoken for the moment it rolled off the line. The numbers were staggering. In 2022, retail prices soared as demand outpaced supply. A mid-range Class C motorhome that once sold for $85,000 was now fetching well over $120,000. Campgrounds from Yellowstone to the Florida Keys posted no vacancy signs for the first time in years. Hashtags like #vanlife and #RVliving exploded on social media, fueling the sense that a mobile future was not just possible, but necessary. One dealer in Oregon recalled, "We had waiting lists for used trailers. People were buying sight unseen, paying above sticker, just to get on the road." Behind the scenes, the production ramp was relentless. Suppliers struggled to deliver enough refrigerators, air conditioners, and chassis. Some builders reported lead times stretching to 12 months or more. The RV Industry Association called it an unprecedented boom, with even luxury brands seeing backlogs they hadn't experienced in decades. For a brief moment, it seemed the industry was immune to the chaos gripping the rest of the economy. But the rush to expand came with its own risks. As factories pumped out more units, dealers raced to fill their lots, confident the buying frenzy would last. By late 2022, inventories reached historic highs. The pipeline was packed, not just with orders, but with expectations that the new normal would be permanent. An executive at a major manufacturer described the mood. "We thought we were building for a new America. Turns out, we were just building faster than anyone could absorb." The seeds of the current crisis were sown in those heady months. With every new shipment, the gap between real demand and industry supply quietly widened. The industry's bet on endless growth, fueled by pandemic fears and dreams of freedom, set the stage for a reckoning that would catch nearly everyone off guard. By late 2023, the RV industry found itself staring down a new kind of gridlock. The lots that once emptied in a frenzy were now overflowing, rows of gleaming motorhomes and trailers stretching to the horizon. In May 2025, the numbers told a stark story. Shipments of new RVs plummeted to 28,150 units, down from 33,150 the year before, a drop of 15.1%. For an industry used to double-digit growth, this wasn't just a stumble. It was the first clear sign that the boom had gone bust. The backlog was everywhere. Dealers across the Midwest and Northeast watched as deliveries kept arriving, even as sales slowed to a crawl. Some lots held more than twice the usual stock, with unsold units sitting for months past their expected turn. Manufacturers, locked into contracts and desperate to keep lines moving, kept shipping. By the time the slowdown was undeniable, the pipeline was jammed with inventory no one seemed to want. The impact rippled outward with each passing week. Auction houses reported a surge in never retail units. Brand new RVs sent straight from dealers who couldn't afford to keep them. Clearance rates at these auctions, once a reliable 80%, slipped below 60%. Dealers who had gambled on endless demand now faced a grim choice: slash prices and take the loss, or risk being buried under mounting floor plan debt. One industry analyst described the mood as ominous, like waiting for a storm to break. The math was unforgiving. Carrying costs soared as interest rates climbed, eating into already thin margins. Each unsold RV became a liability, not an asset. In regions like Des Moines and Reno, days on hand for independents breached 90, a threshold that triggered forced liquidations, and for some, the end of the road. The flood of inventory wasn't limited to small dealers. Even giants like Camping World saw their balances balloon, with inventory financing topping $500 million by early 2025. But size offered some insulation. Large groups could absorb losses, mark down aging stock, and ride out the downturn. Independents, lacking those buffers, faced a harsher reality. Several filed for bankruptcy, their showrooms left eerily quiet as lenders reclaimed unsold rigs. Behind the numbers, the mood shifted from cautious optimism to quiet dread. The market's foundation, built on the assumption that demand would always outpace supply, had cracked. The next wave of stress would hit the people on the ground: the dealers, the sales staff, and the families whose livelihoods depended on turning wheels into dreams. The reckoning was no longer theoretical. It was parked on every crowded lot, waiting for someone to blink first. Dealerships once flush with sales now face a different kind of traffic jam. Rows of unsold RVs, each one a ticking financial time bomb. The root of the crisis lies in the way dealers finance their inventory, a system called floor plan lending. Most RV lots don't actually own the rigs parked outside. Instead, they rely on short-term credit lines, paying interest each month on every unsold unit. When the market was hot, this system worked. Units moved quickly, and the cost of carrying inventory was manageable. But the math has changed. Interest rates that hovered around 3.75% in 2020 have more than doubled, with many dealers now paying between 7.5% and 9%. On a $100,000 motorhome, that difference can mean thousands of extra dollars in annual carrying costs. For a dealer sitting on 100 unsold units, the monthly interest bill alone can reach 6 figures. The real squeeze comes when units linger. Most floor plan agreements include a 90-day threshold. If an RV hasn't sold after 3 months, the dealer faces a curtailment, a mandatory principal payment, often 10 to 20% of the original loan amount. Miss that payment, and the lender can freeze credit lines or demand immediate repayment. As sales slow and days on hand climb past 90, dealers find themselves trapped. The longer the inventory sits, the more expensive it becomes to hold, and the harder it is to move at a profit. A manager at a mid-sized Michigan dealership describes the mood. Every day a rig sits, it costs us money. We try to mark them down, but buyers are waiting for deeper discounts. The interest just keeps piling up. For many independents, the only way out is to send units to auction, hoping to recover enough to pay off the bank. But auctions aren't a lifeline, they're a last resort. As more dealers flood the market with never retail RVs, clearance rates have dropped below 60%, and hammer prices often fall 20% or more below what dealers owe. Lenders, facing their own exposure, have tightened the rules. Starting in late 2024, banks accelerated curtailment schedules and raised liquidity requirements. Some pulled credit lines altogether for dealers whose inventory aged past 90 days. In Des Moines and Reno, independents watched as trucks hauled away unsold stock, repossessed by lenders eager to stem their own losses. One Iowa dealer, in business since the 1970s, wrote in a bankruptcy filing, "Interest is double, sales are half. We just couldn't keep up." Even national chains with deeper pockets are not immune. Camping World's inventory financing topped $500 million by early 2025. While large groups absorbed losses by shifting to used sales and slashing staff, smaller players had fewer options. Many cut prices by 30 to 50%, burning through cash reserves just to keep the doors open. The effect rippled outward. As more units hit the auction block, wholesale values collapsed, dragging down the entire market. Floor plan debt, once a tool for growth, became a trap. Dealers who bet on endless demand now face a harsh reality. Every unsold RV is a liability. Every passing day, a deeper hole. The old rules no longer apply, and for hundreds of family-run lots across the country, the reckoning is measured not in sales, but in survival. Auction houses across the Midwest are busier than ever, but the mood is anything but celebratory. Rows of brand new RVs, some with plastic still on the seats, are lined up for the auction block. Most have never had an owner, never left the lot except for transport. In Des Moines, one independent dealer watched as his entire spring inventory rolled onto the auction floor. He had held out as long as possible, cutting prices by 16% below book value in January. But it was not enough. When the bank finally pulled his credit line, he had no choice but to liquidate. 90 units, gone in a single day, most selling at an average of 18% under cost. The ripple effect was immediate. Neighboring dealers slashed their own prices, desperate to avoid the same fate. The numbers tell the story in stark terms. Auction clearance rates, which hovered above 80% during the pandemic boom, have now collapsed to between 56 and 62%. Many units go home unsold, while those that do sell rarely meet the reserve. Dealers, under pressure from lenders, have cut reserves by 13 to 22% just to get bids. The result is a downward spiral. Each round of auctions resets the market even lower, dragging wholesale values with it. An executive at a major auction house describes the scene. "We are seeing a dramatic increase in never retail units. By May, nearly a third of our volume was lender-owned. Price floors are eroding fast." In Elkhart, Indiana, the so-called RV capital of the world, the panic is palpable. A general manager at a large dealership recalls the moment the decision was made. "Half the staff thought it was bad for the brand, but we had no choice. We started slashing 40% off sticker. Phones started ringing, but the panic was real." The phones did ring, but not with the kind of buyers dealers needed. Bargain hunters circled, sensing blood in the water. Each sale brought a loss, but the alternative was worse: mounting interest, looming curtailment payments, and the real threat of bankruptcy. The pain is sharpest for independents. Unlike national chains, they cannot absorb losses across dozens of locations or shift focus to used inventory. In Des Moines, the owner of a family-run lot, opened since the 1970s, watched 60 years of work unravel in a matter of weeks. His bankruptcy filing was blunt. "We survived the Great Recession, but not this. Interest is double, sales half. Our family has sold RVs since 1974. We are done." Lenders, too, are in triage mode. Starting in late 2024, banks accelerated curtailment schedules and raised liquidity requirements. Some pulled credit lines with little warning, especially for dealers whose inventory aged past 90 days. By spring 2025, trucks hauling repossessed RVs became a common sight on the highways out of Iowa and upstate New York. Auction executives note that lender-owned units now make up nearly 30% of all sales, triple the usual share. Each forced liquidation pushes prices down further, making it nearly impossible for remaining dealers to recover. The liquidation spiral feeds on itself. As more units hit the auction block, prices drop, lenders get nervous, and even healthy dealers face pressure to dump inventory before they are caught in the undertow. For those still standing, every markdown, every auction, is a reminder that the old rules are gone. The market is no longer about profit, it is about survival. As one Elkhart manager puts it, "We are not selling dreams anymore. We are just trying to stop the bleeding." For the Ferguson family, the promise of freedom on the open road began with a spreadsheet and a leap of faith. In the summer of 2022, Jen and Mark Ferguson sold their 3-bedroom house outside Indianapolis, pocketed the proceeds, and bought a used Class C motorhome. The numbers seemed to add up. Their old life cost about $2,800 a month, mortgage, utilities, car payments, and all the rest. On paper, full-time RV living would drop that to $1,900. Campground fees, fuel, insurance, and a modest loan payment replaced the fixed costs of homeownership. With 2 kids in tow and remote jobs that could travel, the Fergusons set out to trade square footage for square miles. The first months delivered everything they'd hoped for. Mornings started with coffee by mountain lakes instead of a suburban commute. The children, aged 7 and 9, learned geography and history not from textbooks, but from the road itself. Jen kept a blog, posting photos of the family hiking in Zion, learning about the gold rush in California, or counting stars in the Arizona desert. "Our home changes every week," she wrote. "Our kids see more in a month than we did in years." But the numbers on the spreadsheet didn't tell the whole story. In February, just outside Tucson, the RV's transmission failed without warning. The tow alone cost over $600, and the repair bill landed at $6,000, more than 3 months of their new living budget gone overnight. Mark remembers sitting in the repair shop, staring at the invoice. "We knew there would be surprises," he said later, "but nothing prepares you for that kind of hit. We had to drain our emergency fund just to get back on the road." The family tried to recover, cutting back on campground amenities and skipping paid attractions. Gas prices climbed through the spring and the budget got tighter. Unexpected costs kept popping up: propane refills, a cracked windshield, a new set of tires after a blowout in Utah. Each expense chipped away at the savings they'd counted on, forcing hard choices about where to go and how long to stay. Yet the trade-offs weren't just financial. The Fergusons found themselves missing the routines of their old life: birthday parties with neighbors, familiar grocery stores, the comfort of a backyard. Their daughter, Emma, struggled with the lack of stable friends. "We meet new kids everywhere," she told her mom, "but we never see them again." Jen and Mark worried about socialization, but marveled at how quickly their children adapted, making friends at every stop, learning to say goodbye, and finding adventure in each new place. For every moment of stress, there was another of unexpected joy. The family watched wild horses graze at sunset in Nevada. They spent a week camped beside the Pacific, learning about tide pools and marine life. They celebrated Christmas in a national forest, stringing lights across the RV awning and calling grandparents from a picnic table. "We traded a house for a home that moves," Jen wrote. "It's not always easy, but it's ours." The Ferguson story highlights both the risks and the rewards of choosing wheels over walls. The dream of lower costs and greater freedom is real, but so are the uncertainties, breakdowns, rising expenses, and the challenge of building community on the move. For families like theirs, the road offers no guarantees, only the promise of a different kind of life. The spreadsheet may say $1,900 a month, but the true cost and the true value can't always be measured in dollars. Nearly 500,000 American households now call an RV their only home, a figure that has quadrupled since 2021. The faces behind this number are changing fast. Where retirees once dominated the scene, the median age of RV owners has dropped to 49, with nearly half now between 35 and 54. A growing slice of the movement is even younger. First-time buyers in their 20s and 30s, many driven by the promise of remote work and the lure of life untethered. Diversity is reshaping the road. 30% of RV owners now identify as Hispanic, Black, Asian American, or LGBTQ+. Families are a growing force, with 43% of owners traveling with children under 18. The classic image of the silver-haired couple in a Winnebago is giving way to multi-generational caravans, single parents, digital nomads, and young couples chasing a different version of the American dream. For many, the motivation is clear: escape from a housing market that feels rigged against them. Some are former homeowners who sold at the top, trading mortgages for mobility. Others were renters, squeezed by rising costs, who saw an RV as the only way to avoid being priced out. There are also those for whom the RV is a last line of defense against homelessness, a rolling shelter offering dignity and a measure of control. The income split is sharp. Some hit the road out of necessity, stretching every dollar and bracing for the next repair bill. Others arrive by choice, flush with savings or remote salaries, outfitting their rigs with solar panels and Wi-Fi boosters. According to industry surveys, 22% of full-time RV households have at least one remote worker, and more than half of those work from the road itself. Reliable internet has become as essential as fresh water or propane. Social media has amplified every aspect of the trend. Hashtags like #vanlife and #RVliving still draw millions of views, with influencers posting sunrise yoga in the desert, campfire dinners under the stars, and family road schooling adventures. But the picture painted online rarely matches reality. Many of the most popular creators are backed by RV brands and accessory companies, their content shaped by sponsorship deals that remain largely hidden from view. Industry contracts, rarely disclosed, often require influencers to avoid mentioning major repairs or to feature only approved lenders in their posts. The effect is a steady stream of glossy, aspirational images that gloss over the financial and logistical risks. One full-time RVer, Jason Beck, summed up the mood in a recent interview. "We're done living someone else's script. No mortgage, no boundaries, just life as we define it." His story resonates with thousands who see the open road as the only place left to claim a future. But for every tale of freedom, there's a cautionary note. Breakdowns, rising costs, and the uncertainty of life without a fixed address. Perception is everything. As the movement grows, so does the tension between the dream and the reality. Dealers and manufacturers have tried to harness the narrative, pouring money into influencer partnerships and lifestyle marketing. Meanwhile, critics warn that the social media boom masks the true costs, leaving newcomers unprepared for the financial and emotional toll. The scale of the shift is undeniable. With 486,000 households on the move, the RV lifestyle is no longer a fringe experiment. It's a social force, reshaping everything from family life to the housing market. And as more Americans trade walls for wheels, the consequences are rippling far beyond the campgrounds and highways, into the very heart of what it means to have and to hold a home. In June 2024, the gears of the RV market ground to a halt, not just for dealers, but for the banks that once fueled their growth. Lenders began freezing credit lines in waves, starting with independents, whose lots brimmed with unsold rigs. By October, reports of credit withdrawals swept across the Midwest and Northeast, leaving dozens of family-run businesses unable to buy, sell, or even keep the lights on. For many, the call from the bank was short and final. No more advances, no new units, and a demand for immediate repayment on anything past due. Auction houses, already busy, became the new front line. By May 2025, nearly 30% of all RVs hitting the block were lender-owned, a share triple what was normal just a year before. These weren't battered trade-ins or repossessed fixer-uppers. Most were brand new, never retail units, some with window stickers still attached. The auction floor, once a place where dealers offloaded oddball models, now overflowed with the latest inventory from shuttered lots and failed curtailment deals. The numbers behind the chaos tell their own story. In May 2025, auction clearance rates hovered between 56 and 62%, a sharp drop from the 80% seen during the pandemic boom. Dealers, desperate to avoid total collapse, slashed reserves by as much as 22%, but still watched as hammer prices landed 18% below cost. Each failed sale sent another ripple through the market, forcing even healthy dealers to question whether to hold out or dump inventory before their own credit lines vanished. Banks, facing mounting losses, shifted from partner to enforcer. By spring, the largest floor plan lenders controlled nearly a third of all auction volume, dictating terms and pushing prices lower. The result was a market frozen by fear. Dealers unwilling to buy, lenders unwilling to risk another round of defaults, and a glut of unsold RVs with nowhere to go but the auction block. The financial machinery that once kept the industry moving had seized, trapping everyone in a cycle of forced sales and shrinking options. In this new reality, survival depended less on selling dreams than on outlasting the next credit call. Across the Midwest and into the Sun Belt, the fallout from the RV collapse is spreading far beyond dealer lots and auction floors. In counties where RV manufacturing and sales once anchored the local economy, city halls now face hard choices. Budget officers in Elkhart, Indiana, and Maricopa County, Arizona, report millions in missing revenue, lost sales taxes, vanished payrolls, and empty property rolls as residents trade fixed addresses for life on the road. Public documents show county shortfalls ranging from $8 to $27 million since 2021, with no easy fix in sight. Libraries cut hours, school districts trim bus routes, and fire departments stagger shifts. "We're watching the tax base drive away," one treasurer told a local reporter. "We built our budgets on the idea that people stay put. Now, they just don't." The debate isn't just about dollars. In city council meetings from San Diego to Bend, officials argue over where and whether RV dwellers can park overnight. Homeowners groups demand tighter restrictions, while advocates warn that bans will push families into homelessness. Police log complaints about crowded lots and overflowing trash, while campground owners struggle to keep up with demand. The fabric of local communities, once woven from stable neighborhoods and steady tax rolls, is fraying in real time. Environmental questions add another layer of tension. A 2023 Sierra Club analysis warned that a typical full-time RV household emits significantly more carbon dioxide than those in energy-efficient homes. Some estimates put the increase at over 30%, especially for diesel-powered rigs logging thousands of miles a year. Critics point to overloaded campgrounds, illegal dumping, and the strain on rural water systems. Full-time RVers counter that they use less water and fewer consumer goods, often relying on solar panels and off-grid setups to minimize their footprint. The clash between mobility and sustainability is far from settled. For local governments, the costs keep piling up. Emergency services stretch thinner, infrastructure goes underfunded, and the promise of a mobile future comes with a bill no one seems ready to pay. The RV revolution, once sold as freedom on four wheels, is forcing a reckoning with what it means to belong to a place, and who shoulders the burden when the wheels keep turning. In May 2025, RV shipments fell 15.1% year over year, while thousands of unsold units lined dealer lots across the country. Dealers slashed prices, some by more than half, as rising floor plan interest rates and inventory overhang forced desperate sales and even closures. Yet behind the collapse, a new reality emerged. Over 486,000 American households now live full-time on the road, their median age just 49. This shift has triggered ripple effects. Counties have lost up to $27 million in property tax revenue, and lenders froze credit lines between June and October 2024. But many questions remain. How will cities adapt to shrinking tax bases? Will lenders develop new models for mobile living? What regulations and infrastructure changes will this movement demand? What's clear is that the RV market's collapse is not just an industry story. It's a sign that Americans are redefining home, work, and community. The system built for a nation of homeowners is being tested by a future on wheels.